So I want to give an update real quick on FOMO3D. First of all, I saw this article here. I've seen a couple of news articles or little articles. I wouldn't say they're all necessarily news, but I've seen articles and I don't know very much about this website, but I wanted to address it. I wanted to address this article specifically, but before I get into that, I want to talk about FOMO3D. First of all, it has slowed way down. Everybody's waiting on the new FOMO3D Quick, which is going to be coming out soon. They've got a countdown timer. It says in 4 days. We'll see. Historically, the development team has kind of trolled everyone in the past. Timers haven't always been accurate, but we'll see. Neither here nor there. It slowed way down. Somebody asked a comment on my channel and said, hey, should I, hang on, let me just refresh the page. Hey, should I, take out a loan to put money in? Absolutely not. I'm not going to give anyone investment advice or even gaming advice. People in Discord ask me, what do you think? What do you think? I instantly block anyone who asks me a personal question about whether they should do something. I'm not going to, everyone makes their own call, and everyone's responsible for their own decisions. But I'll tell you this, dividends have slowed way down. However, I'm still doing really, really good because in the beginning I compounded so aggressively. Now, at some point, you don't want to keep compounding because here's the thing. We're at 21,000 ETH, which is amazing, by the way. This pot is about to hit $10 million worth of Ethereum, which is just mind-blowing when you think about it. And every key now is worth about $3, which is a lot, but that's a small amount towards a $10 million, basically, pot. I read an article today that said that it made a lot of assumptions. I was actually looking for that article. I was going to talk about that article at some point before I came across this one, and this one was even more juicy and ridiculous. But in the particular article I found earlier, it was basically saying at some point this is going to really stress the Ethereum network, which is probably correct. And they were saying at some point, you're going to be earning like a penny a day, and it will take you forever to get your money back. I think that's also going to be correct, without question. Think about it. I was in this thing below 1,000 Ethereum in the contract. Now there's 21,000 Ethereum in the contract. So 21x. Obviously no one actually earned 21x on their money because you got a percentage based off of the number of keys that you had. But with that being said, you can basically assume that if you got in today, at the very least, this thing's going to have the 20x for you to get the same type of returns. So you're not going to get the same type of returns, period. Could you get your money back? Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what in time period, but I still think you could, because the only reason you couldn't is if this thing ended in the next 24 hours, which it doesn't look like it's going to, obviously. However, it does take longer and longer and longer. It's going to take longer and longer and longer to get your money back. It just is the way the nature of this game works. And I actually think that this game may essentially die at some point or be somewhat abandoned, just because it's going to take the payouts for keys are going to take so long, and it's going to be so slow. It's going to be interesting what happens with FOMO3D Quick, which is going to be coming out. Honestly, I'm excited to watch it, but I'm less optimistic about FOMO3D Quick than a lot of the community is. I have some concerns. I just think that it's going to be too fast. We'll have to wait and see what actually happens. And maybe I'll be proven wrong on this. But from what I'm saying, 90-second rounds, it's going to take a lot of gas just to make certain that those transactions go through. The gas alone is going to stress out the Ethereum network. So I'm going to get in on the ICO phase just to watch it. I don't know what I'm going to do beyond that, if anything. So, because, technically, if the ICO phase, the first round is going to be an hour long, for everyone to see a return, this thing's going to have to just go for a long ways, and I just don't know what's going to happen with gas and the Ethereum network and that sort of thing. Literally, someone could win just because the system clogs up for 90 seconds. And a transaction can't get through or whatever. If that happens, that's how someone's going to win, and that could potentially happen before anyone earns a return, possibly in the ICO. I actually think some sort of hybrid would be better. And I'm going to predict that at some point, the community at large and the developers at large, I'm just going to predict this, but I actually think this original game is going to get abandoned. That's my stance right now watching it. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens in the coming week. But I think at some point in the future, not right now, not today, not this week, maybe not this month, but at some point in the future, I think this game's gonna go on a very long time, maybe indefinitely, because there'll always be someone willing to spend $3 to get $10 million. I mean, that could go on for a long, long time. So I think this is gonna. My guess is this is probably going to just linger and languish on. So we'll have to wait and see how that works. I think some sort of hybrid with maybe a 30-minute or an hour timer would be more interesting, where keys actually go up a little bit faster. The challenge with this pot is the keys go up so slow that the pot is almost always juicy. In quick FOMO, my understanding is the keys go up a lot faster. So the longer the game runs, the ratio of the cost of keys to the size of pot starts closing in kind of quick at some point, where it just gets so expensive that first people are going to be knocked out because the pot's just not big enough to keep paying, $30, $40, $50 per key, and the keys grow really, really fast in value compared to the long version. So I think somewhere in the middle between the two may actually be the best, and I predict there'll be a different game or a third game. Although I say that, and this FOMO3D Quick hasn't come out yet, and one of the things they've said is that they're somehow going to be interlinked. And so I don't know how they're going to be interlinked exactly, so that may change things. It's exciting. It's so fun to watch, just in general, to see what's happening. It is really exciting. However, let's talk about this article right now. There's so many things that's ridiculous about this article, but let's go ahead and read it. Ponzi scheme, FOMO3D, self-experiment for a good cause. Warning, FOMO3D is an insidious mixture of Ponzi scheme and a game with an apparent chance of winning. A lot of people will lose a big part of their stakes. There's no doubt about that. The experiment is intended to educate and warn. This experiment is intended to educate and warn potential victims. I'm going to take issue with this right here, based off of the writer's own words. This experiment is intended to educate and warn potential victims. All profits from this self-experiment will go to a good cause. First of all, I want to note that he calls it a Ponzi scheme. The correct term by historical reference is Ponzi scam. So he presents it as a scam, but he calls it a Ponzi scheme. I just want that to be very clear. Make sure that you understand the subtle difference in the two words. However, the FOMO team and the P3D team have been playing off the term Ponzi scam, Ponzi scheme for the duration. That is open, that is transparent. That's why it's not a scam. It is totally open. If you do any reading on the Wikipedia about the rules of the game, you understand early on that the entire thing is designed to kind of, from P3D and FOMO3D, from two different angles. They're totally different. One's a game and one's a token, so they're totally different. But with the same development team, and this team has quite a sense of humor from the beginning. So let's continue in this article. I just have to read this. FOMO3D is a decentralized app based on Ethereum. Depending on the angle of which you look at it, you can call it successful. The publishers of the dApp make no secret of the fact that this is a Ponzi or pyramid scheme. In a pyramid scheme, the earnings of investors are paid by new investors. This goes well until there's no one left who wants to get in. At this point, the whole system collapses. Such systems have existed for over 100 years. What is new is that there are now additional possibilities with Ethereum smart contracts. Pyramid schemes can be started with any rules, without a central entity, who can be made accountable. The rules in FOMO3D are very insidious because they cleverly address a series of human emotions and play them against the players. Among them are greed, the tendency to gamble, the addictive factor, the fear of missing out, called FOMO. I don't take issue with most of this yet. FOMO3D, the rules. New players buy keys. These keys themselves have no value and also cannot be exchanged back. A big part of the proceeds from the sale of these keys goes to those who already have them. The more keys a player has, the higher is the potential earnings he gets. The later a player enters the pyramid scheme, the more keys cost. So he's missing a few details here, but that's generally correct. So far, it is nothing special. This is how all Ponzi or pyramid systems work. Please go wiki the phrase Ponzi and understand where it came from. It came from a scam, not a scheme. I mean, it came from an actual scam, not a scheme. You can call this a pyramid system if you want, but I just take issue with the word Ponzi because he's meaning it in a negative connotation. He's not saying it in jest, which makes this entire article hypocritical as we continue on. This is how all Ponzi or pyramid schemes work, although not always so obvious. This is the key. It's obvious. You know from the get-go what you're getting into. There is no guessing. If you fly in blind, it's because you didn't for a moment read through the website at all. It is very clear. No one is misrepresenting anything here. It is on a decentralized third-party DApp. It is verifiable. Anyone with coding knowledge can read through it. And if you can't read the code, you don't understand what the code says, they make no bones about it. They tell you clearly on the website what's happening. Of course, nobody wants to be the lowest level of such a pyramid scheme or the last to enter. The trick with FOMO3D is that another big part of the revenue from the key sale goes directly into a jackpot. The last person to buy a key wins. The jackpot is paid out when a 24-hour timer expires, but it increases with each purchase. This leads to the following dynamics. The devil takes the hindsight most. Okay, whatever that means. Everyone who buys keys early knows that they don't have a chance to win the jackpot. Currently several €100,000 because the keys are still very cheap. You buy keys to get as much earnings as possible. They're supposed to be the top of the pyramid. Everybody wants the timer to go down to zero and the jackpot to be paid out. So it's going to be a while before they find anyone to buy keys. The timer is obviously not going to go to zero soon. Therefore, many people assume that they are not part of the lowest level of the pyramid system. Meanwhile, key prices continue to rise. Towards the end of the game, it is no longer a question of generating as much return as possible with the keys. Players now want to be the last to buy a key. The goal is to clear the jackpot, which will probably have reached an immense amount by then. This always means that there will be people who will pay absurd prices for the keys. Their proceeds again benefit the other players. I just want to say, and they know this. I don't understand why this is a problem, first of all, at all. And again, by the tone of the article, it seems like he thinks this is a problem. But I want to show you something for just a moment. This is a penny auction site. The way it works is you buy bids. And you buy, I don't know what they sell their bids for. It's like 50 cents a piece or $1 a piece or 60 cents a piece or whatever. You buy bids. You buy 100 bids for 50 cents a piece. What's that, $50? And then what you do is you bid on these items. In each bid that you bid, so you pay $9.30. If you want this Home Depot gift card, you're going to pay $9.40 if you place a bid now. If the timer hits zero and you were the last person to place a bid that you paid 50 cents for, if you're the last person to place a bid, you win. This is very similar to FOMO3D, the way that it works, except instead of a Home Depot gift card for $50 or $100, it's a $10 million jackpot currently. However, when you spend that money on Quibids, on this penny auction site, it just goes to the company. It doesn't go to anyone else. So what is the problem if people are willing to spend money to win a jackpot and it goes actually to other people instead of some corporation? Where's the problem? No one's being deceived. No one's being duped. What is the difference in these business models? This is a perfectly legitimate business model. It makes no sense to me where the problem is with this model. FOMO3D is very similar. Let's get back to the article. By the way, the operators keep 2% of the purchase price for each transaction, so they are interested in keeping the system running as long as possible. Since a smart contract controls the system, there's also no risk that the operators disappear with all the money. In this sense, it is not really a fraud or a scam. This is the most correct things he said the entire time. But the whole thing is nevertheless insidious. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. Bidding on Quibids can be quite insidious as well. FOMO3D, this is where it gets interesting. A self-experiment. I came across FOMO3D fairly early, a few days ago after the start of smart contract. After short research, I was pretty sure that the system could develop an unbelievable amount of momentum on its own as soon as it started to roll. When I saw on DApp Radar that FOMO3D became one of the top 3 smart contracts with a very short time, I knew that it could become the little or big brother of BitConnect. Until then, cryptocurrency's biggest Ponzi scheme. This is inaccurate. BitConnect has been assumed to be a Ponzi scam. If BitConnect did not deceive people, and if their practices were legitimate and they did not stop operating, then there would not be lawsuits against them. But currently seems that BitConnect was not legitimate. They misrepresented themselves. They claimed to have a trading bot. That hasn't been totally disproven, but by the way that they responded to cease and desist orders, it looks like most likely they did not have a trading bot. That makes it a scam. That is a very big difference. This is why FOMO3D makes fun with P3D, the development team behind these two experiments or contracts or projects. The reason that they pick on BitConnect is because it was fraudulent, or it seems to be so at this moment. I have no interest to enrich myself. Okay, I want to read this. I have no interest to enrich myself at the expense of my fellow citizens, since I am relatively sure that I clearly belong to the top of the pyramid system. I have bought keys in a self-experiment and will donate all proceeds to charity. With this self-experiment, I hope to achieve the following goals. I would like to achieve a good ranking for the term FOMO3D on Google with the page and thus warn many people about FOMO3D. If you disregard the great damage that this game will inevitably do for many, it is actually a very fascinating experiment and a convincing application for smart contracts within the framework of permissionless innovation. I would therefore like to record the course of events, and perhaps an interesting story will develop. Up to this point, I avoided linking to FOMO3D. I don't want anyone to find the game through this site and join without reading the article and knowing the dangers. However, the experiment also includes a bonus system for all those who recommend the game. So if you know the risk and still want to participate for whatever reason, then use the link below. The 10% commission that is credited to my account will also be donated. Okay, the end game. Reasons why most people will lose a big chunk of their... Please don't forget this article right here. This paragraph that I just read. The end game. The reasons why most people will lose a big chunk of their stakes. Again, it's a pyramid scheme. By definition, most users will be left empty-handed at the end of the round. Here are the reasons. I agree that most people will be losers. I do not agree that most people will be left empty-handed. That is part of the genius of FOMO3D. I'll talk about that in a minute. Many will simply enter too late to get the stake out via the earnings. This will be true for people who enter late. Some will reinvest their returns directly into keys and thus also belong to the first class, meaning that no one will take profit. They'll just reinvest forever. That is true, but whose fault is that? That's part of playing the game. When you sit down to play poker, someone's going to lose the hand. Okay. FOMO and greed win, and you put too much into it after initial successes. Okay, that can also be true. That doesn't have anything to do with the smart contract itself. No one's responsible for making sure that adults don't make poor decisions. That's up to the adults themselves. Somebody's going to win the jackpot, but it's simply a raffle, and the stakes will be so high towards the end that the expected value equals a lottery win. First of all, it is true, it is a lottery win. It is not a raffle. It's more like a penny auction where the last bid wins. It's not a raffle at all. It is quite possible that towards the end of the Ethereum network will be spanned by professionals so that no one can buy keys anymore. That is possible. However, all that does is drive volume to the P3D contract if you understand how they're connected, to the P3D project if you understand how they're connected. There's a risk that the smart contract will be hacked. For comparison, the respected Unger smart contract has taken 2 years to ensure the correctness of its code. Okay, that is possible. It hasn't proved that it can or can't happen, so I guess that's possible. There's a small risk that the programmers still have clauses in the smart contract which they can withdraw all deposits themselves. This is a small risk. I think unlikely, but it is a small risk. The website could be shut down before the timer expires. This isn't going to matter. I've already covered this in another video. The website is just a UI, and if the author of this website thinks that the website getting shut down is going to shut down, his words, the smart contract, then he inevitably doesn't even need to be in the game, because therefore he doesn't even understand what a smart contract is. If the website goes down, it will hurt the volume of the game. It could default potentially to a winner, as I've mentioned in another video. However, there are backup links, as I've put on previous videos, to the GitHub, which again allows you to interact directly with the smart contract. And there's also videos on YouTube already of people using buying keys and interacting with the contract directly with Etherscan as well. The experiment. Okay, I'm not going to cover all this. Basically, he says he got in, and it seemed pretty good. Then it was running slow, and then he talks about how, and you can read this article if you want yourself. He talks about how it goes insane, it gets crazy, it gets exciting. All of a sudden, the jackpot gets $500,000 in it. He can't even believe what's happening. Basically, he shows his chart. This chart is accurate. It goes nuts. Taiwan is a big player. Canada is a big player. This is important that you pay attention to this because of something he says, which I think just shows that this author is just, I think, personally, just not a good human being. So then he says win Lambo. So he says he's going to make a few predictions. I'm going to cover this right here. I'll make a few predictions. As already written several times, this FOMO3D round will run for months, if not years. I agree with this 100%. Despite this, no one who enters now will get their initial investment out except for the jackpot winner. I think this is probably not correct, although there will become a point where it is correct. That's just my opinion. The reason is that basically the end game has already begun. Of course, there will still be lots of unfortunate people for a while who invest because they have seen the mad gains that YouTubers report on. But for them to get their stake out, a multiple of current volume would have to be added. By comparison, when I got in, keys were a total volume of just 1 million USD. I was able to break even at 10 million. Now the total volume is 40 million. He's talking about, okay, total amount of keys, which means that the hundreds of millions more of capital would have to be added in order to introduce a new lowest level into the pyramid. This is true, but you still can get your money back. I mean, based on my own numbers, you can still get your money back. It was just going to come in a little bit slower. Because people will no longer make profit, the game no longer spreads virally. However, the jackpot will attract some more attention, but the jackpot is currently a different one. It is no longer about buying as many keys as possible, but one key is enough for the jackpot, and it's currently cost about €2. The key prices increase continuously, but not with time. Okay, so it's blah, blah, blah. As long as the key prices remain relatively cheap in relation to the jackpot, the timer will not go to zero. I can imagine that the key that wins the jackpot will cost several ETH. This is where he just hasn't done his own research. First of all, at 1 million ETH, mathematically this has been discussed in Discord, at 1 million ETH, and now currently we're at 20,000. At 1 million ETH in the contract, one key is not even going to be 1 ETH based off the mathematics of the game, which is why I disagree with him that we're in the end phases. The only reason you would not get your money back in this game, and it's just a game, you need to understand that there's always a risk, but if it's going to take several ETHs per key before someone actually wins a key, we're a long ways from that, so this game's got probably many months, if not many years to go. So I do believe, currently my personal opinion is you would still get your money back. It's just going to start taking longer and longer. Another prediction is that the game will be a serious test for Ethereum because with the jackpot in the multiple digit million range, it would be profitable for one or more winners with greater than 50% hash rate to buy a key and not let any more transactions through to win the jackpot. An unimaginable disaster for the system. That is somewhat true. Now here's the hypocrisy of all of this, and this is really sad in my personal opinion. Meanwhile, my oh so noble promise to donate all proceeds from the experiment is getting shaky. First, I suddenly feel less guilty of enriching myself at the expense of my fellow citizens. What? Let's read that again. First, I suddenly feel less guilty of enriching myself at the expense of my fellow citizens. Why? And he goes on to say, when these fellow citizens are faceless Chinese, because FOMO3D is popular there. Actually, they're Taiwanese, based off his own chart up here. Second of all, wow, because they're from another country. I mean, how racist have you got to be? Because they're from Chinese and I don't actually know them. I don't care that they're victims. I mean, that's just horrible. And secondly, the amounts have simply become very substantial. Let's look at what he calls substantial. Money spoils character. Since I took out my bet in less than 2 days, so he made his money back in 2 days. And suddenly he thinks no one's going to make their money back. Yes, I think you will. It'll just take much more than 2 days. Almost 8 ETH have accumulated in my account, $3,600. So $3,600 is all that it has taken to shaken his character. He says this is a Ponzi scheme. He says that it's bad and that it's negative. My argument is if that is his belief that this is bad, this is negative, and he chooses to keep even 1 red cent, then that makes him complicit in what he says is a horrible project, Ponzi scheme, which the tone of his article, I mean, he means to say it's a Ponzi scam, it seems like. But this makes him simply complicit. I mean, I think this entire paragraph makes this entire article somewhat hypocritical. And I think the real motive behind this, I think, is right up here when he says, why is he doing this? And he said, because he wanted to rank high for the term FOMO3D. And then he throws his masternode link in here. And he even put do not click. But yet he's going to give 10%, the 10% commission that he's going to get to his account, he's going to donate it to charity. But it's only taking $3,600 and he's already getting weak knees and his character's already weak. I mean, oh, come on. How hypocritical do you have to be? Now listen, I've not recommended that anyone join this at all. At all. I have put my masternode link down there. I absolutely do support the project. I think it's fascinating in every way. I support P3D. I think it's fascinating in every way. You don't need to play if you don't have money that you're willing to risk. You need to see it as a game of chance. That's exactly what it is. But when I read stuff like this, I'm like, come on. I mean, what is your real motive? Like, good Lord. I mean, this sort of messaging, I think, is just horrible for the space. Is this going to stress out the Ethereum network? Yes. Is everybody going to get in, going to lose big except for the final winner? No, and I want to show you why. The main reason is the doggone vault. This on lockdown amount is basically the amount that I can't get this. I've got 2.8 ETH in here. And if the game runs long enough, mathematically, it has been said, I've not read it myself, but mathematically, my understanding is the contract says that this actually continues to grow and caps out somewhere around 30%. So depending on when the game ends and when you got in, you're going to get a substantial portion basically as kind of a bonus or a kickback back that can be as high as 30% that you've invested. And let's just clarify this. 30% of what you've bet in the game plus what you've rebet or reinvested, however you want to say it. So if you put in, 2 ETH, but you keep reinvesting, all of a sudden you got 20 ETH. Well, 30% of 20 ETH is around, a little over 6 ETH. So if the round ends, I don't even know if the round will ever end. And if it does end, it may end because of technical issues with the Ethereum network. But if the round ends and you've been playing long enough, you could get up to 6 ETH back, which is actually more than you originally put in the game in your original bets. So, the idea that everybody's going to leave empty-handed, that's just not accurate. Now, someone said, should I take out a loan? Absolutely not, people. I mean, oh my goodness. If you don't understand the game, don't play. But if you want to understand it, come over here to Miscellaneous. Read every word of Wiki. Don't even read just every word. Read every word. Click on every link. Just understand what it is. I mean, just like any game, develop a strategy. If you're going to play a game, then you need to have a strategy for the game. So at least know what your strategy is going to be going in. You can't figure out your strategy if you don't at least understand the rules. Watch every video. Here's a full video walkthrough. Go through everything. Make sure you fully understand the game. Even though it's a game of chance, the goal is to be able to put the strategy in your favor. But this is my video. I'm out of here for now. I think it's fascinating. I'm actually hanging out to see what's going to happen with FOMO3D quick. P3D has been looking great. The rewards have been great over there. Like 2 and 3% a day is what I've been hitting lately with the increased volume. In fact, let's see if we can pull up a chart. The chart's been crazy. Let me see. So here we go. So here's the chart. In 24 hours, it's up 20%. This is really very fascinating. So basically, it's ran way up, and there was a bit of a sell-off, and then it's ran back up, and there's a sell-off, and the way P3D works is it's a totally separate project. Basically, for every buy and every sell, there's a 10% fee. That 10% fee is distributed back to all token holders in the percentage that you hold of outstanding tokens. I don't have a ton of tokens. I have a little over 300 tokens. But, basically there's fees paid on these sales. There's fees paid on these buys. And, of course, the token price can go up as well. It's the whole... And the way FOMO3D plays into it is a certain percentage of every key purchase gets thrown back to P3D. So that it adds volume, Ethereum in a contract. It comes back in dividends for the holders that are holding the keys. Some people have called this the wheel and FOMO3D as like a spoke in the wheel, so to speak. And there's more 3D applications to come. There's Quick FOMO, and there's even talk of something else coming behind that down the road. So it's a very fascinating space in the crypto space. I think it's one of the neatest, most interesting projects currently in crypto. But you can check out the proof of weak hands at powh.io. You can come here, you can read all about it for yourself. But thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. And please don't leave me any comments asking what you should do.